My best friend's sister is accusing me of getting her pregnant, even though I'm a virgin, but when they see the baby isn't mine, because I'm not Asian, I'll fight with everything I have. My best friend's sister is telling everyone she's pregnant with my child. I'm talking about my parents, her brother, and I never even touched this girl. She has a huge crush on me and is angry because I'm not interested in her, so she's making up this lie. Well, when the baby is born in a few months, I'll take a DNA test and prove that everyone is wrong. As for my parents, they've been turning their backs on me for 3 days. The only time they talk to me is when they want to yell at me, and honestly, they're demanding that I admit to what I'm being accused of. But I refuse to do so because, well, I didn't do it. I'm sure some of you reading this are thinking, what the heck? Well, let me back up a bit. I've always been a good son. As an only child, my parents spoiled me and always made me feel loved. They never had to worry about me getting into trouble because I was always a good kid, got good grades, never did anything wrong, didn't get into fights, or anything like that. As I said, I was a good kid, and even when I became a teenager, I didn't rebel or disrespect my parents. Honestly, I was as respectful as I had always been. That's why when they didn't believe me after I was accused of something so horrible, I was in shock. I had never given them a reason not to believe me. Since I started school, I had always worked hard to get good grades. My parents earn good money and can afford to pay for my college tuition, but they said they wouldn't make that investment in my education unless I held up my end of the bargain and got good grades. I took it seriously because even with scholarships, I was going to need them to cover some of the costs. You know, since I spent so much time studying, I didn't hang out with many people or make friends easily. Luckily, I had a best friend who was like me, Caleb. Caleb lived about 2 blocks away from where I grew up. We met when his family moved to town when he was around 8 years old. Since then, we were best friends. We were inseparable, and at school, we were always together. Outside of school, we'd go to each other's houses, or I'd stay at his place, and he'd stay at mine. It was like we became part of each other's families. Caleb was the best friend anyone could ask for. He also had a sister, Sabrina, who is 2 years younger than us. She's 16, and since we're graduating in less than 3 months, we didn't spend much time with her. But she's a nice girl. She's never been rude to me, and there were times I thought she liked me, but I always ignored it because I don't see her that way. To me, she's like a little sister. It would be weird to think of her any other way, and I just didn't think of her romantically. Besides, I generally didn't give too much importance to dating. You know, school was the most important thing to me. That was what would ensure I had a good career. It's not that I didn't have crushes or anything like that, of course I did, but I didn't give them much thought. They never went beyond that. I think in my whole life I've only gone on a few dates. My longest relationship lasted about a month. That was in my junior year with a girl in my math class. We flirted with each other, but it fizzled out after a couple of months. Thinking back, I remember Sabrina acting a little jealous during that time. Whenever I mentioned I was going out with Kyla, she'd give us dirty looks and mutter something under her breath. But whenever I asked her about it, she'd just shrug and say it didn't matter. I guess it was normal for her to have a crush on me. It's normal to have a crush on your brother's best friend. It had never happened to me, but as I said, I'd seen it happen to other people at school. What Sabrina felt for me didn't matter. I saw her as a sister, and if she ever confessed her feelings, I had decided I'd turn her down respectfully. It just wasn't a relationship I wanted, but she never said anything. She even started dating boys, something Caleb teased her about in a playful way. You know, like an older brother would. He said he had the right to joke with her. I'm an only child, so I don't know how that works. Then, everything seemed to go to hell. It happened so fast that I had no warning of what was going to happen. I was coming home from school at my usual time. Caleb stayed after school for a club meeting, so we decided we'd see each other tomorrow. When I got home, I was surprised to see not only my parents sitting in the living room, but also Caleb and Sabrina's parents. They were sitting across from my parents with somber expressions on their faces. It was so weird because it seemed like they had something serious to discuss with me. "What's going on?" I asked. Let me tell you, I wanted to run out the door. There was no way I wanted to know what they had to say, but eventually I had to come home. When I sat down next to my parents, they decided to tell me that they knew the truth. Sabrina had come over today and told them she was pregnant. Do you want to know the most shocking part? Apparently, I'm the father. You know this is a complete and utter lie. I've never slept with anyone, let alone Sabrina. Not that I wanted to make it public, but I've never had sex. How could I have gotten her pregnant if I've never slept with anyone? I tell them it's simply not true. There's no way I could have gotten her pregnant because I've never done it. Plus, I don't like her that way. She's a great girl, but I don't see her that way. The look on their faces told me they didn't believe me. My heart sank because it didn't make sense. How could my parents not believe me? I kept telling them over and over that I didn't do it, and again, it's not something I've done with anyone. Ugh, It's embarrassing to even say this out loud, but I need to make sure they know I'm not the father. My dad tells me I need to tell the truth. He says they know I got Sabrina pregnant because she wouldn't lie about something like this. I say I knew she had a crush on me, and that could be why she said I did it, but it's not true. There's no way I'm the father of that child. Then her parents start. They tell me they know I took advantage of her and got her pregnant. According to Sabrina, when she told me she was pregnant, I decided I didn't want anything to do with her. They were calling me an irresponsible father, but how could I be that if it's not my child? This is pure madness. I kept telling them she was nothing but a liar. All they have to do is a DNA test, and they'll see the truth. My mom yells at me, telling me I need to take responsibility, like a good man would, and Sabrina's parents shout that it's the least I could do after taking advantage of their precious daughter. Nothing I say gets through to them. None of the four are listening to me, so I just tell them once again that the child isn't mine. If I ever got a girl pregnant, I wouldn't abandon her or tell her I wouldn't be the father. Having a child at my age wouldn't be something I'd want, but if it happened, I wouldn't run from my responsibilities. Of course, they kept yelling at me, telling me to man up and admit what I did, but I refused. See, I wasn't going to admit to something that simply wasn't true. Eventually, Sabrina's parents left, and I was left with my parents. My mom yelled at me to go to my room. She said she couldn't stand to look at me right now, and that I had shamed her as a son. After that fight, I didn't leave my room. I just stayed there until it was late. When I was sure they weren't around, I went downstairs to get something to eat, and then went back to my room. That's how I've been living for the past 3 days. When I leave for school, I hurry out of the house. I try to avoid my parents as much as I can, which isn't difficult because they're avoiding me too. I've been eating all my meals in my room and keeping to myself. It's horrible to be ignored by my parents like this. I don't know why they're doing this to me. You'd think they'd want to support their son no matter what, right? But no, they don't want to support me. They want to go against me for some reason. Guys, if you have any advice on how to handle this, please, I beg you, let me know. I'm at a loss for words and want to talk to my parents, but what if they keep ignoring me? There must be a way to prove I'm telling the truth. If you have any ideas, please leave a comment. Update 1. Mom and Dad decided I need to be kicked out for what I've done. It's only been 3 days since my last post, and I was planning on waiting a while to take in all the advice, but then my parents came to talk to me. The day after I posted, they came to my door and told me I had to leave unless I admitted to what I did to Sabrina. I can't say much, but basically, they told me they wouldn't let me stay at home. They don't want to have a liar in their house apparently, because they didn't raise me that way. I reminded them that they didn't raise a liar. I'm not lying, and I begged them not to kick me out because I'm telling the truth. I even asked them to give me a chance to prove it, but they wouldn't budge. They told me to pack my things, leave, and not come back until I was ready to admit the truth and be a man. So I packed my bags and called my aunt, who lives in the same town, about a 5-minute drive away. She was shocked to hear what had happened and couldn't believe my parents had done that to me. Thankfully, she came to pick me up quickly. She told me I could stay with her, and after settling in, I heard her call my parents and tear them apart. She criticized them harshly. She told them they should believe me, and if they weren't sure, they could wait until the baby was born and get a DNA test. Until then, she told them, they should support me. Honestly, it's hard to believe my parents kicked me out. I knew they were mad, but I thought they'd come around and realize they could trust me. I've never given them a reason not to. It's crazy that they trust Sabrina over their own son. I graduate in less than 3 months and now I'm practically homeless, without a place to live, though it doesn't feel like that since I'm staying with my aunt. She's been amazing and has told me I can stay as long as I need to, but she'll still try to reason with my parents. I appreciate her trying, but I don't think it'll make a difference. If they don't believe me, why would they believe her? For now, I'm just focused on finishing school. College is still the goal, but at this rate, I don't think my parents will help pay for it. I'll figure it out. Right now, I don't really need advice, but if you want to send well wishes or leave a comment, that would mean a lot to me. I'm just trying to keep my head down, finish school, and move on from here. Thank you all for your support. Update 2. While at school, I was attacked by some of Sabrina's friends. My parents kicked me out 3 weeks ago, and I've been staying with my aunt, just trying to get through each day. It's not easy because I want to go back home to my room to my parents. They've always been decent, and I don't know why they changed so suddenly. When I asked my aunt, she said she had no idea, but she assures me everything will be okay. She tells me she'll help with college, but I told her no, I don't want her to waste her money on me. At school, things are very weird. Sabrina is still spreading rumors that I got her pregnant, and I keep denying it, but people are divided. Caleb is ignoring me. The only thing he said was that he's torn between the two of us, but he has to ignore me because his parents would disown him. I can't believe my best friend is doing this to me, but I guess it makes sense that his loyalty is with his sister. It's natural to want to be loyal to your own blood, something my parents don't seem to understand because they threw me under the bus, refusing to believe me. School got worse the other day. When I was about to leave for my aunt's house, 3 of Sabrina's friends attacked me, 2 guys and a girl. I'm not weak, but they caught me by surprise. Plus, 3 against 1 isn't fair. As a result, I'm covered in bruises and have a black eye. I reported it to the principal, at my aunt's insistence. As soon as she saw me when I got home, she said she was going to make sure those kids got in trouble. But honestly, I didn't want to press charges. All I wanted was to forget it happened. The principal suggested that my presence at school was making things worse because of the rumors about Sabrina, so it might be better if I finished school online. I'm so tired of all this crap, so I told him yes. I just couldn't deal with it anymore, so I decided to finish school from home. My aunt supports me, and it seems like the best option. Still, I haven't heard from my parents. My aunt keeps trying to talk to them, but I told her to stop. She's wasting her time. Until the baby is born and a DNA test is done, they won't believe me. For some reason, I'm not sure how I'll feel about my parents by then. I doubt I'll forgive them. The longer this goes on, the angrier I get. If they had reached out to me and apologized, maybe I'd have forgiven them, but not anymore. I think that ship has sailed. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I'm sorry I didn't update sooner, but I've been busy. First, I was trying to finish school and graduate after switching to online classes. Also, applying to colleges, trying to figure out which ones would accept me. I got accepted to a local 4-year university, and even got a partial scholarship. I'll be living at home and paying for some things with the part-time job I got. I'm starting the semester a bit late because I wanted to save as much money as possible. For me, it's important that my aunt doesn't have to pay for me. She's already done too much. But wow, I have big news. The baby Sabrina said was mine has finally been born, and it turns out the baby is Asian. He isn't white like me. I can't even describe the mix of emotions I felt when I found out. Relief, vindication, frustration, everything was there. My aunt and I had a good laugh afterward, but overall, the situation was just ridiculous. And my parents? Well, they finally contacted me after the baby was born. They were remorseful, but honestly, it felt like too little, too late. I had been angry for so long, and while it feels good to be vindicated, the pain is still there. It's going to take time to fully process everything. On the other hand, Sabrina hasn't said much, and neither have her parents. Caleb hasn't contacted me either, and I don't think he will. The whole thing with him is still something that affects me, and I don't know if we'll ever be friends again. For now, I'm focused on moving forward. I'm about to start college, I have a job, and I'm working on building my future. I've learned a lot from all of this, mostly about standing up for myself and trusting my intuition, even when people around me don't believe me. Thank you all for your support during this crazy journey. I'll try to keep you updated if anything major happens, but for now, I'm focused on the next chapter of my life. Update 4. Now that my education is going well, I have some big news to share. Sabrina went into labor a few days ago, and as you already know, the baby was born Asian. There's absolutely no way I could be the father because, well, I'm white. My parents are white. Now it's clear that whoever was with Sabrina is Asian, and that's it. Since the baby was born, my parents have been trying to reach out to apologize. I've been ignoring them, but they finally showed up at my aunt's house, begging to talk to me. My aunt kicked them out, telling them they had some nerve showing up after everything that happened. I thanked her for doing that because honestly, I wasn't ready to face them yet. Eventually, I agreed to meet with them at the park. I wanted to be in a neutral place where I wouldn't feel pressured to do what they wanted. When they arrived, they immediately started apologizing, saying they were sorry for everything and wanted me to come back home. Then, they pulled out a check and handed it to me. The check was to help pay for the rest of my education. I asked if I had to move back home to keep the check, and they said no, I didn't have to. All they wanted was for me to visit more often and maintain a relationship with them. I took the check, but I haven't done anything with it yet. It's just sitting in my drawer. My parents keep asking if I've cashed it, and I keep telling them no. For now, this semester is already covered. So, I've just kept it. So here's the dilemma. I don't know what to do. I'm not going to forgive them for what they did, at least not anytime soon. But I also know that if I tell them I won't maintain a relationship with them, they'll probably cancel the check. Part of me thinks they're only doing this to get something from me, not because they truly want to make amends. If you have any suggestions on what I should do, please leave a comment below. I'm a bit lost right now. I don't trust them, and I don't want to give them another chance. They're hypocrites, and it's clear they're trying to make up for their mistake now because it's convenient for them. So yeah, any advice would be helpful. Thanks again for sticking with me through all of this, and I look forward to reading your comments. Update 5. My parents want me to move back home, but I accepted their check as a peace offering and then cut off all contact. My parents invited me to dinner, and I agreed to go, but before that happened, my aunt told me she had heard from a family member that my dad had been diagnosed with a serious illness. Eventually, he'll need to stay home and will require help. My aunt also heard that my parents were planning to ask me to move back home, and if I refused, they would cancel the check they had given me. Since I already had this information, I decided to deposit the check a few days before dinner. The check cleared without any issues, and it was clearly labeled as a gift, so I won't have any legal problems. My parents wouldn't know I had cashed it until I arrived at dinner, and by then, it would be too late to threaten me with returning the money. When I got to dinner, everything seemed fine at first. Then my parents mentioned my dad's illness and asked if I would move back home to help out. I reminded them of what they said at the park, that they wouldn't force me to move back if I didn't want to. Then they brought up the check, saying that if I didn't move back, I'd have to return the money. At that point, I laughed and told them, "Oh no, the check has already been cashed and cleared. The money is sitting in my bank account right now." My mom started crying and threatened to report me for fraud, but I calmly reminded her that they wrote the check as a gift. I also had proof in our text messages, where they clearly said the money was a gift. Then they tried to guilt-trip me, saying it was cruel to abandon family in a time of need. But I reminded them they had done exactly the same to me when they refused to believe I wasn't the father of Sabrina's baby. They kicked me out and refused to listen, so I no longer had any sympathy for their situation. The last thing I said before I left the house was that I wanted nothing more to do with them. From now on, I'm cutting all contact with my mom and dad. We're no longer going to have a relationship. It hurts that my dad is sick, but it's clear they only want me back because something bad happened to him, and they need someone to take care of him. Well, I'm not that person. Don't worry about me, I didn't cave into their manipulations. I left the house without being pressured into anything. When I got back to my aunt's house, I told her everything that had happened. She agreed it was crazy that my parents had reached this level of emotional manipulation. So here we are now. My parents and I have officially cut all contact, and I'm going to focus on my studies and my job. If my parents had believed me from the start, none of this would have happened, but it's too late for that now. Update 6. Well, I'm back with an update because I've made some decisions about all of this. After everything that has happened, I finally decided to sue Sabrina. Honestly, it's not something I planned on doing at first. After finishing school, all I wanted was to move on and leave that chapter behind, focusing on my main priority, which is my studies. But things have changed, and after talking with my aunt's lawyer friend, I realized that not only do I have a solid case, but I also have the right to seek justice. The lawyer, who is a close friend of my aunt's, explained that I can sue Sabrina for defamation, as her lies brought me a ton of problems. Not only did I have to finish school online, missing the experience of graduating with my peers, but I also had to deal with constant harassment from other people. Let's not forget that I was physically attacked because of these rumors. That's not something I can just ignore or let go of. My life drastically changed because of something I never did. Initially, when the lawyer brought up the idea of suing, I was hesitant. I didn't want to lose my focus on my studies and stray from my goal of completing my college degree. But after talking more with him, he told me that this lawsuit could help me in the long run. If we win the case, I could receive a substantial settlement from Sabrina's parents, enough to cover my education without having to rely on a part-time job. In fact, that would allow me to fully dedicate myself to college, something that has been difficult so far because of financial responsibilities. My aunt also encouraged me. She fully trusts her lawyer friend and assured me that he's very good at what he does. It seems he's been successful in similar cases, and he's confident we can get a good amount in compensation for all the damage they caused me. Thinking about it, it's only fair. They destroyed my reputation and my school life, and I shouldn't have to carry the consequences of their lies. So, after giving it a lot of thought, I've decided to move forward with the lawsuit. I know this decision is going to create even more drama, but I'm used to that by now. What matters now is that justice is served, and that Sabrina and her parents face the consequences of their actions. Update 7. It's been a long time since my last update, and I can finally tell you how the defamation lawsuit against Sabrina went. Everything has come to a verdict, and I can happily say that everything turned out as my lawyer and I expected, although it's been an exhausting journey. The process was much more manageable thanks to my parents' money, which allowed me not to have to work while the lawsuit was unfolding, and that significantly eased the emotional burden. So, despite the complexity of the process, I had the time and energy to focus on both the lawsuit and my studies. And as for college, things are going incredibly well. It's everything I had imagined and more. I'm living an experience that, a few months ago, seemed almost impossible when all I wanted was to escape that nightmare. Being able to fully focus on my studies without worrying about finances has allowed me to excel and truly enjoy the process of learning and growing. But more on that later. Going back to the lawsuit, The first few months were the hardest, not so much because of the legal side, but because of the number of people telling me I should let it go and not pursue this. One of the first people to contact me was Caleb, my former best friend. We hadn't spoken since he kicked me out of his life because of Sabrina's lies. He didn't even bother calling me when he saw that his sister's baby was Asian, which should have been the first clear sign that everything had been a lie from the beginning. But now, suddenly, with the lawsuit underway, he seemed to remember my number. He called to tell me it wasn't fair for his sister that I was doing this now, as she's a teenage mother going through all of this alone. It turns out the guy who got her pregnant doesn't want to take responsibility for the baby, and they're suing him for child support. I don't know how all that will turn out since he's also underage, but honestly, that's not my problem. I told Caleb that his sister earned this lawsuit. Sabrina went on with her lies even when she knew it wasn't my child, and he, as my friend, was never able to stand up for me or take my side. I reminded him of the beating I took because of his sister's lies, and how he did nothing. At least Caleb understood my point and didn't call me again after that conversation. I think that relationship is beyond broken, and I have no intention of repairing it. I also received a call from Sabrina's parents, whom I once considered a second family. They, who believed their daughter's lie without question, accused me of taking advantage of her. I understand they're her parents, but they didn't even give me the benefit of the doubt. They called to ask me to drop the lawsuit, arguing that they already had too much on their plate with the child support lawsuit. I told them I wasn't going to do that, and that if they wanted to stop all of this, they could have done so when Sabrina started spreading rumors about me at school. I told them that not only were they bad parents to their daughter, but they also allowed it to get to this point. I even told them they failed in their job as parents by letting their 16-year-old daughter get pregnant. That probably hurt them, but I can't know for sure because after saying it, I hung up the phone. I didn't see the point in continuing the conversation after that. The last person I expected to contact me was Sabrina. She sent me several messages begging me not to do this to her. In the messages, she confessed that she was in love with me, and that all of this happened because I never paid attention to her. According to her, I was always focused on my studies or going out with other girls, and that made her feel ignored. She claimed she regretted lying, but was desperate for me to see her in the same way. I don't know what Sabrina was thinking. I don't know if she really believed making all of this up would make me fall in love with her, or if she was just trying to get revenge because I didn't return her feelings. Either way, though she got a bit of revenge in the short term, now she's facing the consequences of her actions. I didn't respond to her messages. I just took screenshots of everything to present in court. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to complicate the legal process, but I blocked her after saving the evidence. Finally, the trial is over, and we won the case. The amount I received is substantial, more than I expected. It's enough to cover the rest of my education without having to work while in college. This allows me to fully dedicate myself to what I really enjoy and focus on getting the best grades possible. I've even considered the possibility of transferring to a better university now that I can afford it, as I've always wanted to go to a more prestigious institution, but finances were an obstacle before. To be honest, I never thought I would get to this point. At first, the idea of suing Sabrina seemed extreme to me, but now, seeing the outcome, I'm grateful I went through with it. Not only because the money will allow me to achieve my educational goals, but because I feel like I've finally gotten the justice I deserved. For so long, I was the victim of lies and manipulation, and people treated me like the villain. Now the truth has come to light, and I can move on with my life without that burden.